Hello, I'm going to talk to you about formality in academic writing. Formality means choosing the right words for the type of writing that you're doing, which is academic writing in our case. And I'm mostly aiming this at my ESL students, and if anyone else benefits from it, then that'll be fine too. Um, so let's look at some examples of writing and see if we can tell first if they're formal or not, see how good our instincts are. So here's a tweet from the president. It says, "Remember, the cure can't be worse than the problem itself. Be careful, be safe, use common sense." It seems like it could be formal because it's coming from a politician. On the other hand, it's Donald Trump, and he's not very formal usually when he talks or when he writes, especially when he's writing things himself as opposed to having someone write them for him. And it's also on Twitter. Twitter's usually pretty informal, right? So this is actually pretty informal writing. Specifically about the language, he starts with an imperative. Imperative is a command like sit down, right? So he just says remember. If you were writing more formally, you might say like we must remember or something like that, right? There's also some let's see, not following the standard rules of capitalization. He capitalized cure, and you don't need to do that. I'm not sure why he did in this case. And the final sentence, be careful, be safe, use common sense, is 3 clauses in a row with no conjunctions or anything between them, and that's pretty unusual in informal writing. It doesn't follow the standard rules of written English, right? So this is not formal writing. How about this one? Well, it's not Twitter. And just based on the text, it looks formal. It's all black. It's not colorful. It doesn't look like it's from somewhere on the internet. And this is not by Trump. It's by someone named McKay, who wrote a book, or at least an article. And this is from page 51. That looks academic to me. If you start reading, you'll see some vocabulary that's pretty difficult. This is because some of it is the jargon, the vocabulary that's specific to this academic field, in this case, psychology. And that's a good sign of formal writing when it uses a lot of technical language. And if you look also, this person doesn't use any personal pronouns. There's no I, there's no we, there's no you. It says an individual, not even a person. It says an individuals. That sounds more formal. And then down at the bottom it says represents one's vision. One's vision. If you were speaking casually, you might say represents your vision, and the your would just mean anybody. But this person used one's. When you see one used as a pronoun, it's usually formal writing. So I think this is formal. Ooh. So here's some very informal writing. This is really a meme. A meme is just like an image or a phrase that people throw around the internet. And it has a specific meaning, but it's not academic. All the feels it's from the internet, it belongs on the internet, and particular types of communication on the internet, maybe Twitter. The same way that a word like elf or halberd, right, might belong in fantasy literature, or like wizard or something, might belong in fantasy literature. This phrase, and especially the way it's presented with the colors and the typeface, really belongs in a certain type of internet communication. So it's not formal writing. Okay, so this one's a little more difficult. It doesn't scream internet, but if you look carefully, it's a personal story. It says I'm, I've, I don't, I almost say, but then I say no. There's a lot of talking about the writer's feelings. The writer talks about her own life. And of course, she uses the personal pronoun I to do that. There are also a lot of contractions, right? I'm, I've, don't, etc. Based on the topic, right? A personal story and some of the language all the contractions, starting a sentence with but, etc. I think it's not academic writing. It's probably a blog or something like that. And actually, at the end of the second video, I will have a list of references that these come from. So actually, yes, this is like a blog. It's something that this person wrote for an online magazine. Okay, so about the specific parts of language that can make writing seem formal or informal, one of them is contractions. If you see a lot of contractions, you're probably dealing with informal writing, right? Contractions are shortening words down to shorter versions of themselves, like I have changes to I've, cannot changes to can't. Cannot is a little tricky because even the formal version is actually squished together. It's not two words, right? But these are more common in informal writing and less common in formal writing, especially ones like gonna, which you don't normally see in writing at all unless it's texting or Snapchat or something like that. And I'm going to put a question mark next to contractions because I said these are more common in informal writing, but your writing teacher might not care about these. They might not. They might not circle them and say you need to use the full version of this phrase, not a contraction. I, as a writing teacher, don't care about these at all. But you might have a teacher who does, and just know that the full version of the phrase is considered more formal by most people. So, there's another way of shortening words down, which is abbreviations. Abbreviations are taking usually the first letter of a word and sort of making a new word out of just those letters. So, for example, CIA, people usually just say the CIA instead of the Central Intelligence Agency, although the full name of the agency is Central Intelligence Agency. It is okay to use these in any type of writing, in formal writing, in casual, informal writing, but in formal academic writing, there are some parts of the way that we write academic papers that requires us to explain what these mean. And I just mean when you write an academic paper, you're not writing to your friend, you're not writing even to someone who's in your class. And although it's usually your teacher who sees your papers and grades them, you're not supposed to write it to your teacher. You don't say, "Dear teacher, here is my essay." You're supposed to write for someone who is an intelligent person who is not in your class, is not in your school. So a lot of abbreviations that might be familiar to you, you still have to explain if you're doing academic writing. Even ones that you think everybody knows, maybe the name of your school, maybe the name of a country, you still should either just use the full name or do something like this. The Central Intelligence Agency, henceforth CIA, has blah, 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 blah. If you explain the abbreviation the first time you use it, then you can continue to use it for the rest of your paper, and the reader will not be confused. But you do need to introduce it the first time, just in case they don't know what it means, right? See, the henceforth here means from now on. From now on, I will call this CIA. Okay. So that's it for now. In part 2, we'll talk about a few more strategies to have more formal writing.